This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slecker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, educated educators talking education.
Yes, it is. Tim and Johnny, Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Yeah, that's what we do. Got a little bit of a tongue twister there for some reason, Johnny Lupinacci. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good to see you too. You know, we're in a heat wave out here in the Northwest. I believe a lot of our listeners are in a little bit of a wet weather.
Yeah.
I think there's rain headed up that way from leftover from the hurricane. But like yesterday, most of the country's warm. It's summer. It's a lot happening. Politics have heated up. They were already kind of warm and hot, but they've heated up most certainly. Yeah, we'll get to that. But before we get too far into things, Tim, we got to throw a shout out to our friends at Minocqua Brewing Company. Busted Pencils is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who are big time advocates of public education and are always working hard to build community and to make great beer. They advertise this, so I'll share it. And I love that they brag about this. The most sued brewery in America. Why? Because they're defending not only public education, but democracy. They're standing up to the big dogs out there. Minocqua Brewing Company is making Wisconsin great again, one beer at a time. Check out MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, where you can see what they have to offer, and you can buy their progressive beer.
Nice. And swag, t-shirts, coffee mugs, you name it. It's all there. Minocqua Brewing Company. Johnny, it's Educators Amplified Wednesday night. Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna in the house. Both of them in the house. We got them back. Summer, they're traveling back and forth. Teacher Joanna, Teacher Hallie, checking in with you guys. You guys have both kind of been to different places. Anything exciting where you've been when you haven't been with the show? I mean, give us a little, field trip report.
Well, I was going to say, hey, Johnny, I was on the West Coast. I just got back from San Diego. Ooh. So that was fun. Yeah. And right when we were leaving, we were hearing about the heat wave. And I was like, this is glorious. So I don't know what you guys are talking about, but I'm sure it's different. But it was amazing. San Diego. Recommend it.
Nice. Great place, man. Best weather in the country all year round.
Yes, it was amazing.
75 and sunny. Teacher Joanna, how you been?
I've been good. I had told you that I was in Puerto Rico a few weeks ago, and I brought my dad back with me. Okay. So that's kind of what I've been up to lately. I've been hanging with Dad.
Yeah, well, and that's it. Taking care of our elders is something we do. I know I'm spending a lot of time, doing that, caretaking, mother-in-law. It's just something we got to do. And we, some days you're like, but other days you're like, goodness, we can provide for that. Sherry and Horicon, good evening, friends. Good evening to you too, Sherry. Always love when you get to say hi. Yeah, Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. And on every Wednesday night, it's Educators Amplified in the house. Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna, Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna too. Just a reminder, Educators Amplified, when we talk about that, is your kind of tagline, but that was your podcast that the two of you put together, correct? Give me a little refresher on Educators Amplified.
Yeah. Educators Amplified simply, but after this, Joanna will talk more big picture. But simply, I'd say, we came together to amplify what's really going on in education from those on the front lines, educators, because so much of what we hear about in the media, or from anything about education is not from the actual educators, the people working with students, your children. And so we just saw we could just tell it's so important to actually hear about what's going on. And now it's really morphed into, or in our heart of hearts, it's also just to be a space of connection, a space of empowerment, a space where educators can come, speak freely, or just feel like they're understood and heard.
Nice. Teacher Joanna.
Captured it well. Right. We're a space, we're a movement, and we've kind of always adapt to whatever's happening. We started
Mhm.
out with live radio and events, morphed into a podcast. Now we primarily are speaking with you guys and working with small groups of teachers.
Nice.
Mhm.
Well, you say the educators amplified, so that explains then your title there. You're
Yeah.
amplifying educators, as we said, way, way, way too often when it comes to talk about education, what's happening in schools, what's happening with districts. Yeah, it's typically not the educators we want to talk to. Teacher Joanna, you got that?
Well, I was just going to say, right. It is someone speaking for us or
Mhm.
using our words through their own filter. Like we would say one thing, we would often talk to our leaders and they'd be like, "So what you're saying is," and I'd be like, "No, that is not what I just said." And
But
so we need that direct line to hearing from teachers themselves.
I was gonna say, but Joanna, I didn't really want you to say what you meant to say. I wanted you to say what I wanted you to say.
Well, that is part of it.
Is that school leadership 101 right there?
Well, I just really think that things have really changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of our leaders, their training is pre-COVID.
Mm,
And here in Wisconsin, pre-Act 10.
mm.
And those are really two defining experiences for current educators. So, where a lot of leaders will say, like, "Oh, yeah, I was a teacher too." Sure, respect that. But there's really not a lot of leaders that we've encountered that
Mm.
have this current context and experience. And there's certainly, hey, y'all are in the teacher training world. I don't know that all of your ed leadership has arrived to the present circumstances.
The disconnect between what Johnny and I do teaching future educators, which is also sometimes future teacher leaders. I mean, I've worked with a principal licensing program, a superintendent licensing program, and yeah, the connection back to realizing. And so I think what you're saying is the more we could actually have more teachers informing the voices of leadership. In fact, even to the point of saying, you know what, why don't you let us talk sometimes and let us get out the message about what's actually happening in our classroom? Because what's happening in my classroom, I bet people would be really interested to hear from me.
Well, I've always been stunned and literally stunned that they're not more curious. Like I would want to know, like I want to know, like right even now I talk to I'm in high school, so I asked my elementary friends like what are you experiencing? What's it like? What are you seeing? What are the new things you're worried about? What are the things that are going well? I've really been stunned by the lack of curiosity, but I think that has to do with oh man, what's it called? Like the logic of confidence
Mm.
that leaders feel they have to project, they have to put everything through the
Oh,
logic of confidence of that, like, oh, I mean, and oh my gosh, that's been my frustration of listening to school board meetings since Act 10. If you listen to a school board meeting, most of them, everything's fine. Everything's great. They've got the perfect solution. They're making the best decision. And yeah, so whereas if we had teachers, and again, not that we're pessimists and negative, but we bring a critical, like the beautiful kind of critical lens that you were talking, like a loving challenge to things that are brought forward and saying how they may or may not apply for our profession and certainly to what that's going to be like in practice and not just theory.
I just
Mhm.
heard something I want on a t-shirt. It's either beautifully critical or critically beautiful. Either
Mm.
way, that just sounded so nice, Johnny. You know what I'm saying? Man, I know. Yeah, it's like critically beautiful, beautifully critical. Ah. Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna. So that's Educators Amplified. So glad to have you guys with us every Wednesday, and truly, truly excited to have both of you back in the house today because, man, we got a lot to talk about. There's been some great shows. I know you guys have been paying attention and listening, but I mean, last night talking about social justice teaching with Jesse Hagopian and the Rethinking Schools. And I know you guys have some comments there. Also, though, too, recognizing that what's happening, I mean, Teacher Joanna, you are with the Milwaukee public school system. A little heads up, what's going on in Milwaukee, what's been happening. We know the last part was that there's a budget, and when we say a budget issue, it was a complication. We want to revisit that a little bit to talk about, more of those things. And then, as we move into, though, critically beautiful, beautifully critical, is that some form of citizen preparation to possibly get children to be critically beautiful and sense? Yeah, you know what I'm saying about it. John Lupinacci, jump in there and help me out, man.
Okay, well, you just asked Joanna for an update on the Milwaukee.
I know. I was just saying we're going to get to it.
Okay, I'll hop in, but man, then I want to hear too, because we did talk a little bit about Milwaukee Public Schools and the budget debacle and things, and I think it's probably, also connected across our country to what Teacher Joanna and Teacher Hallie are saying. Like, how often are we listening to the people closest to the decisions that need to be made? And that's teachers and students, right? That's the folks in those classrooms doing that work. Tim, I love this critically beautiful, because I want there to be an effort, and as part of a social justice educator, it's really reclaiming critical, because critical became sort of this like curmudgeon kind of like super smart. Well, I read about this and I know the problems and I point my fingers and I can critique stuff, which that's actually just like a tiny piece of bad habits associated with critical. Critical means to create and negate, to both be able to say there's something better we can all do. There's a better way to think through this together. It's not right in front of us. How do we figure this out?
Well,
Busted pencils, yeah. Fully leaded education talk. Lupinacci, a little bit of freeze right there. Critically beautiful, beautifully critical. We definitely have it. But Teacher Joanna, in fact, we're going to go deep into that throughout the show today. But 1 minute left. So the budget debacle in Milwaukee continues.
Yeah, I haven't heard many updates myself, to be honest. There was the article that maybe I think Civic Media referenced maybe about a week ago. But truly, like as an employee, I haven't heard any updates. I know that my just thoughts in general, because I don't think I've spoken about it at all, were just, I'm aware of the extreme talent shortages in all areas of public schools, from the central office down to, our lunchrooms and school buses. So
that's busted pencils. Teacher Joanna, actually, we're going to let you come back on that when we get back. Teacher Joanna looking at the Milwaukee budget debacle. Educators Amplified, busted pencils. More when we get back. Had to wait and let that come in. Busted pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. And Wednesday night, Educators Amplified in the house. Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna. Critically beautiful, beautifully critical. We're going to go more with that too as we get into the show. Teacher Joanna, I didn't realize when we talk about the budget debacle, and just to remind people in Milwaukee, it was the state gave Milwaukee more money than this Milwaukee was supposed to get, and now Milwaukee is trying to figure out how to give back what was overly given to them. Is that kind of the what you remember of how to frame this?
Well, and what I'm reading is just that it's due to like understaffing in the finance department. And people would, so understaffing, and then with that understaffing, really inexperienced people. And to me, that's parallel to what we see happening in the teaching profession as well.
Yeah.
We have, staffing issues. And then so we have and then we have a lot of inexperienced people. So that's what I meant by that, of like, we're a public school entity. Yeah, I don't know how many people who go to college for finance are coming in to work at a public school, where again, like your finances are really pretty fixed. I don't know. Like, I'm totally winging it, talking.
No,
Those are the pieces that I read about that came out saying that
no,
this was a result of a department that was not properly staffed and didn't have a lot of experience.
it sounds like what you're saying too, and Johnny has said this before. Is, I mean, this is what happens when you defund public education. All of this, you end up with, again, inexperience, potentially maybe even not the correct software to manage it. Because we point out, Milwaukee public school system is a huge organization. We're not talking about a high school and elementary school and a middle school here. We're talking tons and tons of square miles and real estate, numbers of students. So the idea of keeping the finances straight, you got to know what you're doing. You got to really, really know. And you got to have people who have had experience knowing how to do this, because it gets really funky. And yeah, Teacher Joanna, that's where I've really kind of come down and hearing this is going like, well, you know what? It is really complicated, and there may have been a miscalculation, but the people that you gave us the ability to hire and the amount of support you've been able to give us, potentially it could have been even worse. And the way you make that connection too, geez, aren't we doing that all across the public school sector, from teachers to bus drivers to everybody? It's just like we're underfunding, defunding to the point, and then we get angry and or ask questions about going, I wonder why things aren't working so great.
Yeah, but there really hasn't been a lot of updates, and so I'm watching the news like the rest of you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Teacher Hallie, though, on this one, though, Busted Pencils, just wanted to welcome you back into the show. We come into Milwaukee, that budget is there, but so you heard Jesse Agopian talking last night on Rethinking Schools, and we're talking about social justice teaching, and I know Teacher Hallie and Teacher Joanna, you guys have said that's actually kind of like really the heart of what you guys have been trying to talk about when you're teaching this thing we term social justice. So Teacher Hallie, when you hear social justice teaching, what does that make you think you would be doing in a classroom?
Well, I'll offer that it is interesting because while Joanna is in Milwaukee and she has those sets of concerns, needs, whatever, with like the news being in her face about all this, I'll also offer that I'm in southeastern Wisconsin in a very conservative community. So if I even ever identified myself as a social justice teacher, I'd be canned. And so that's where I get like education can be difficult at times because the jargon can be very Frankensteined. And honestly, as an educator, when I hear that, like as an individual, I hear that as like you're honoring the lived experiences of children. I just view it as like, instead of being like, here's the curriculum that everybody needs to be force fed, it's honoring, respecting, helping children bring out like, how have your lived experiences helped strengthen you, helped made you resilient, yada, yada, yada. So individually, I look at it like that. But big picture and from like a school system, I sadly don't see many school districts that can say that they're socially just or that even promote an environment that would allow for children's lived experiences to be honored. So that's kind of how I hear all of that. Like, I love it. Great idea. Yes, yes, yes. And then what's actually going on in education, I don't think supports individuals or groups of people, the whole system being able to do it.
So it's not a very socially just system is what I'm hearing you talk about moving in there.
I guess so.
Johnny Lupinacci, you got a thought there. I can see it.
Well, Tim, I mean, I'm lucky. I've never had to or, been faced with the choice of was I teaching in a district where I couldn't identify as a social justice educator. Detroit Public Schools squarely identified as social justice centered. So that was very focused. When I taught with the Jesuits, that was part of their core belief system. Social justice was explicitly in the missions of the schools. And then, I'm lucky enough to have a job in a teacher education program where the mission statement of our department and our colleges partnering with diverse communities for social justice and sustainability. So I've been lucky. Like I've had that backing. Again, I'm in the state of Washington. There's legislative, it is law that every child deserves and needs to be given anti-racist education opportunities, our public schools. Now, does that mean it's happening? That's why I'm coming back to like what Teacher Hallie brought up. Does that mean it's happening? I don't think it is. And that's sort of confirmation a little bit in our conversation. Teacher Hallie is saying like, there are districts you can't even identify as that. And that's probably more common than my experience teaching. And then in addition to that, even where I taught, even though it was in mission, I wasn't too sure we were great at it all the time or that we were doing it. We were playing school like the districts that are saying, not here, we don't do that social justice stuff. So I think it's a big, high need. And I love how Teacher Hallie and Teacher Joanna bring it back to just, it's really about caring about respecting and honoring all children. It's really about saying, here's how we learn to value ourselves, to value one another, to care about ourselves, to care about one another. And here's where the content we're learning helps us do that. That's really important. So I love this conversation, but the sad truth is I do think it's not happening as often as we might like it to be or dream that it would.
Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education and Educators Amplified. Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna in the house. The number's 855-752-4842. Jump in there. What is social justice teaching to you? Give us the question. I'm going to pose this for everybody as we're going into break. Is social justice an ideology or is it a practice? And because I kind of hear you guys talking about, or is it that we wish it was a practice, but we're not there yet? We're going to answer that question. More Busted Pencils, Educators Amplified when we get back. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education with Educators Amplified. Yeah, it's Wednesday night, and Teacher Hallie and Teacher Joanna are in the house. We're talking beautifully critical, critically beautiful, and social justice teaching gets a bad rap sometimes potentially, or it could potentially also, maybe it's not really even occurring when we think it is happening. Or are there times when, what we might call social justice teaching, is it really just people advocating things that have nothing to do with social justice? Hallie, I'm going to read a quote from you, though, that you had put in as we came into the show. We can't keep kids in the containers of reading, writing, and arithmetic. They are complex beings who benefit from the social interactions with their peers and having conversations among them with healthy adults. And that goes with what we were hearing during the break, power with. Make sense of that.
Well, I'm upset, or what's been surrounding me lately is that there's no real conversations about like what teaching and learning really is and what public education is for, or what's its purpose, or what is it serving. And there is a dominant force trying to say that public schools should just be reading, writing, and arithmetic, that open up the brain, shove it inside. That's all that you should do. And obviously, from my experience as an educator working with children, no offense to those people, but I can tell they've never worked with children, because Right. Working with children is complex. There's so many diverse needs. And so something that I just really value about public education is that concept of like it's peers being able to socialize with peers that are different, come from different backgrounds, have different situations at home, have seen different things. And so let's just talk about it, not in a way of being like, this is what it has to be for everybody. But I think it can increase a child's ability to see things outside of their own bubble, and that to me, or what I know is education. And then how children truly learn is through processing that with other peers. And so that's really what I mean by all of that. But I know that connecting back to social justice and even what I just said, in order to have all of that, you have to preserve the high quality professionals that are in the schools and create those healthy environments and have the adults then be healthy to be able to foster these type of conversations. Like that's true quality education. So yeah, I think, it takes a lot, but it can be done.
I do. Teacher Joanna, you got that look of going,
You do have a little smirky.
Well, it was making me think about, I can't even exactly remember, but something you and I were talking about earlier today, Hallie, with the acknowledgement that teaching really is very PC. So when we are like accused of like sharing an ideology, I cannot remember, I've been teaching, I've completed my 28th year. And I think what I became really good at, or what teaching is how to facilitate, not just, it's not the old view of like the sage on the stage where I just stood in front of my students and spewed and expected them to listen. Like the majority of my teaching was so interactive, where every voice mattered or could contribute. And so one, I think that sometimes when people talk about education, they really are talking about a picture of a long time ago. Like maybe I did kind of experience that when I was a student in high school in the early 90s, but in my experience in the profession, it's not like that. It hasn't been like that. Like teachers, that's part of the professionalism, right? Is that you're building on every idea, you're making every connection, you're leading people to come to their own conclusions. It's not rote. It's not like I said this, so you repeat this back. No, it's like making sense of things for themselves and together. And so wow, I just wish that that was more like updated. But even when I talk to people, it's clear to me that everyone has the picture of what it is when when they went to school. And that's where I said again, with our leaders being trained way back when, like it's just different.
Well, there it is. As true as the bell rings, Tim, you know what time that is, listener. It is time for today's Democracy in Action. We do this here every day, Busted Pencils. Fully Loaded Education Talk. Democracy in Action. Today's Democracy in Action is this discussion, unpacking social justice education, and really Teacher Joanna and Teacher Hallie in this segment are Democracy in Action because they highlighted two really important core democratic values: equality and diversity. Equality. Everybody should get the same treatment regardless of where their parents or grandparents were born, where they were born, their race, their religion, how much money they have. Citizens all have political, social, and economic equality. And guess who our citizens? Our students. You know who else? Their teachers. You know who else? All of us. So this is Democracy in Action, valuing equality. And then with that, and I'm telling you this, Tim and listener, and everyone out there, because this isn't something made up by social justice people. This didn't come out of DEI stuff. This didn't come out of like recent Democrat politics. It comes out of core democratic values. It goes back to the founding of this country. And you want to know what this next one is that goes with equality? Diversity. It's not new. Differences in language, dress, food, where I talked about those kids and their parents and grandparents were born. We could be born in different places. We still have equal value in our communities. race, religion are not only allowed. The differences we have are not only allowed, they're celebrated, and they're what make us important. So these aren't just new liberal things. These are core democratic values of the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. And man, I've been going on about it because I love this part of every day's show, Democracy in Action. Thank you, Teacher Joanna and Teacher Hallie, for banging that one out of the park with us tonight.
Absolutely. They brought it. And Johnny, man, too, making us remember that what you're talking about isn't this new liberal fad. It's going back and being truly a democratic patriot, digging deep, freedom, liberty, bringing back those terms and saying, you know what, good. You want to call it social justice education, call it good education, whatever it is. But that is going back to the founding of this country around those core democratic values. Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna, look what you did to Johnny tonight.
Well, again, we just like to talk about the process and the reality of educating. Even when you say the word diverse, I just think about, in a classroom, and this is how I would explain it to parents. It's like if you are a parent and you have multiple children, your kids are different.
Yeah.
Guess what? And so, you do different things for your different kids. They're motivated by different things. They're comforted by different things. They learn in different ways. And that's teaching. Not that I'm parenting them, but saying I have a room full of kids and they have all those things. And so then that's the beauty of being a professional educator. That's what we really know, right? Is how children learn, how they develop, how they respond, how we can make those connections. And so it has to be diverse because you got a whole group of people and nobody's like cloned in there. So that's what I hear.
And I love it. I love it. Tim, you probably know the definition I always give, and Teacher Joanna just broke it down. Diversity is a condition of difference upon which everything exists. We ourselves are like individual human beings. We aren't singularities. We are diverse cells and different warring bacteria colonies and all kinds of things. We don't eat the same thing. If we only drank water, we might not survive, right? We have to have diversity. We have to have biological diversity, cultural diversity, or we don't exist. So it's just there by condition. Now, whether we recognize and value it, that's the other piece. And that comes back for me around to what it means to be a critical educator, right? A social justice educator, beautifully critical, critically beautiful, is valuing diversity, recognizing it and valuing it. And I love how Teacher Joanna and Teacher Hallie break that down into where that might not always be supported, because they're reminding us like, hey, we're really talking about ways we ought to be teaching. It's not like there's a whole lot of teachers out there saying, not me, I'm not going to teach that way, but that it's really not supported structurally in the way that we organize schools, the way we incentivize, the way we support, and just sometimes just the very build of schools and the practice of public schooling in this country is not congruent with supporting this kind of beautifully critical that we're talking about.
I think it goes back to what Joanna has said is, we've pointed this out. We don't value the words, the thoughts of teachers and kids. Both put those two together, the kids and the students and their teachers. What do they have to say? We don't care. We don't listen to that. We don't elevate the voices of teachers and kids, which is kind of really sad when you think about being in the business of educating communities for critically beautiful citizenship and beautifully critical citizens. How could we go without hearing from Teacher Hallie and Teacher Joanna and Educators Amplified out there doing the work that you guys are always doing, which is elevating those voices of teachers, educators, kids, those closest to the realities that need to be brought forward. Man, that just landed for me right there on that moment. And Hallie, you got that look of going, what? Tim is crazy or?
No,
Okay.
I was laughing because you know what? you guys listen to civic media and love your listeners. So you're doing what you're preaching. That's why I was laughing.
Oh, that laugh though too. We're gonna bottle that laugh and keep that. Teacher Joanna. But I mean, this is kind of what started the conversation tonight. You know, we were having text messages back and forth preparing for the show, and it's just that whose voices do we value? And if we could start there and saying, well, whose voices don't we hear?
Well, I always think back on just who I am and how I've developed as a teacher. And I do know the technical stuff, but I know something that I brought with me or brought into it that I can just always point to of like, why have I loved teaching and why have I been pretty good at it? Is I always say, I have a profound respect for children.
Mm.
I can hear them and I listen to them and I value them. And that is where, though, I'm kind of at odds with a system that says, no, I'm in charge. And no, I should tell them. And no, I should limit them in these ways. And so I've just always been sensitive, I think, when I was a student and then going into teaching, into how the setup doesn't profoundly respect children. And I often found myself being I would tell Hallie that all the time. I'd be like, we're advocates, you know what I mean? Of like, and so I just know that the majority of educators who are up in this, they have a profound respect for children. And that's how they do it.
Busted Pencils fully. Let it education talk. Educated educators talking education. And it's Wednesday night talking to educators amplified. Teacher Joanna, Teacher Hallie. The number's 855-752-4842. You can jump in, give us a call. Do you value students? Do you have a profound respect for children? If you do, then you want to call us, give us a call and talk to us. You know, I mean, I'm just thinking, it's like, man, I see children and I have the respect. And yeah, maybe that is it too. It's like, where are we putting that respect? How does that respect, how do we show that respect? How do we show that we profoundly respect children? Well, if you're a social justice educator truly doing it and doing some beautifully critical work, I'm going to bet that you profoundly respect children. Busted Pencils, more when we get back. There it is. Busted Pencils fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. And yeah, truly on Wednesdays, Educators Amplified in the house. You can't have any more educated educators talking education than when you bring Busted Pencils and Educators Amplified together. Man, critically beautiful, beautifully critical. Speaking of that, LA Tom's kind of critically beautiful sometimes. Tom, what's happening, our friend? What's going on?
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate the compliment there. No, I just wanted to say that I think that the administration of schools and superintendents and things like that don't respect the creativity or diversity of the actual teachers. When I think about how teachers respect the diversity of students and how beautiful that is, I look at why is it that the parents of these kids don't respect the diversity of teachers and why they don't let the teacher run their classroom almost like it is their own business and give them the freedom to be able to actually respect the diversity of their students. And I think that would make for a much better teacher in the long run, rather than teaching them, oh man, you have to be just exactly this one way so you're not too important of a teacher, because if we get rid of you, then it's not a big deal. It's just like it is in the workplace. If you rise above everybody else, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh man, we have to get rid of that person because that person is becoming too valuable to the company. Therefore, let's get rid of them now, because we just want people basically that can take an order or use AI or whatever. We don't want someone that's going to be actually special. And I think that's really something to really think about. And again, I'm talking about, a book I'd love to write, which is called Legacy of Teachers, about how people don't go into the teaching profession anymore, and how it's got to be where the administrators, the principals, everyone have got to respect the diversity of teachers and what it is that they bring to the table.
LA Tom, loving that. Respecting the diversity of teachers. I see both Teacher Hallie and Teacher Joanna got that nodding, that look. Teacher Joanna, drop a little wisdom on us.
Well, what? I actually talked about this last week on the show, where I said that younger teachers were saying how part of their disappointment and why they left the profession was because they weren't able to be individuals. They were like, in the interview, you wanted me to say that I believe in edible food source, like an edible garden in the school, and I want to do a school garden, and I want to run these experiments. And it's like, in the interview, they wanted to know that you could stand out in some way. And then when you got there, it's exactly what Tom was saying. Then it was like, oh no, you can't do that. Like, fall in line. And so I had just talked about that last week. And then it also made me think about, well, first of all, thank you, LA Tom, for always sharing your support and understanding of the professionals. And I've been thinking lately about the difference between respect and dignity, because there are a lot of different calls for respect, but it's now we're talking about dignity. Are teachers human who are worthy of dignity, right? And being treated well and compassionately and with understanding, and like Tom said, like celebrated for what they bring, that is unique.
Just the way you even said that too, or just the difference of teachers, the diversity of teachers, and how we don't respect that, and realizing that, Joanna, the way you said in the interview, we want you to talk about how awesomely unique and cool and how beautifully critical you are and how critically beautiful you are. And then when it comes time to go into the classroom, though, here's your high quality instructional materials, your scripted curriculum, and stay with fidelity to this curriculum, because you're like, oh, but what happened to how excited you were to hear me talking about how I wanted to do really cool things with edible gardens?
Well, this is probably a topic for another day, because it's big, because specifically now I'm speaking for Hallie and her experience as a special education teacher, where that was an area where she really wanted and needed to bring her creativity to where legally it says you can individually, put something together, and how really standardized and scripted that became. And right, and she really struggled with that, and I think that is also contributing to, where that's one of the highest shortage areas. Because I think it's two different things.
Well, and I'll offer, it's interesting because I was thinking about that, but I remember also a good friend, but right, when I was typing up IEPs, my teacher friend and I would always be like, and now it's time for me to put my brain in the drawer. Because and it's the saddest concept, but we would be like, the aspects of teaching that we thought would be creative and exciting, it was like, nope, you just put your brain in the drawer and fill out the drop-down menus. So I was thinking the same thing, Joanna, just about.
Yeah.
Johnny Lupinacci, I do not ever want you putting your brain in the drawer.
No.
Don't worry. I might put it on some edibles, but that's about it. But here we go, man. What a show tonight. What a great round the horn with our favorite educators amplified. Listeners, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling LA Tom. We love when you listen. We love when you call. Hey, listeners, Big week next week. The Republican National Convention is next week, Monday through Thursday, July 15th through the 18th. Civic Media will broadcast live coverage each night from 7 to 8 p.m. Civic Media Radio Network host Todd Alba, what a guy, huh? Will broadcast live from the convention each day, noon to 2, with analysis and commentary. I'll be listening. Yes. Tim, I know you'll be listening.
I'll be listening.
Hallie, listen. We got the Civic Media app. You can get it through your smart speakers. Let's go. Also, if you're around in Madison or you're up in Minocqua, run through the Minocqua Brewing Company. Busted Pencils is sponsored by Minocqua Brewing Company. Check them out. See where you can buy progressive beer. Whew. Last thing, leave the listeners with August 13th, 2024. Make a plan, Wisconsin folks. It's always important to vote, but vote in this election. Vote in every election. Man, Tim, look forward
and vote no on the referendum.
Well,
sorry.
Teacher Hallie, Teacher Joanna, Educators Amplified in the house. Thanks so much for busting pencils. Tomorrow night, trending education news. See y'all tomorrow.